Welcome to the post game. I am your substitute. Uh, I get a few people here. Thanks, guys. Chris, Joe, Nathan are all in the house. Appreciate you guys showing up. Um, I don't know how long a post game this will be. I want to first point out the important things for those of you who were here last Monday. My mic is back. I'm sure I sound dulcet and the way that you all expect me to sound. I listened to the audio. I don't think it sounded that bad. I think you guys were just being mean, but I guess I should expect that because those are the kind of friends that I have. Here to talk about Purdue's 27-20 loss up in Minnesota. Man, that is a tough loss. That is painful. This is the kind of stuff, right, that happens when your team's not very good. And I made a joke on Twitter last week that Purdue wasn't good, and I had someone say to me, "Purdue's not bad," and that's great. I'm glad you're a true believer. I'm glad you're a fan. I am not coming down on this team. I'm not coming down on these players. I'm not saying that they're not coming out and trying. I'm not saying they're not working hard, because they are. That is evident. To me, it is obvious that these guys are bringing energy every game. And as I said on the Handsome Hour, I think you can see things every week being a little bit better here and there. Different things are getting better. There are elements that look better every week. But what Purdue has not done and continued to not do tonight was put it all together, right? And what I said last week about Illinois was if your secondary played even a mediocre game, that's a much closer game. You might even win it. You lose by 2 touchdowns, but you might have a shot if your secondary played at all decently. The defensive front was getting pressure, was getting to the quarterback. They still gave up 43 points, something like that. So that's not good enough. Tonight, amazingly, the defense did enough. Now, there will be people who talk about the bad face masks, and yes, there were problems. But taking away the pick six, which is not on the defense, you held them to 20 points. Again, you're playing in a Big Ten game against a fairly middling Big Ten opponent. That should be enough to win. Just like I said last week, 4 touchdowns should be enough to be in any game on offense. If you hold a team to 20, 13 entering the fourth quarter, you should have a chance to win. You really should. And Purdue had a chance to win. Obviously, I shouldn't suggest that they didn't, but they found a way to lose. And again, this is what teams that are growing, that are bad, that are not quite what they're potentially going to be, this is what happens, right? I'm going to talk about a few things. I'm going to talk about some pluses and minuses, try to be as even-handed as I can, and then hear a little bit from all of you. Before I do, though, to follow Boiler Dad's typical lead, I want to thank our sponsors, AJ's, our friends. Head towards the fire station when you're leaving Ross-Ade or Mackey or anywhere on campus. Go towards the fire station, then turn and go into AJ's. Get yourself some food. Get yourself something to make you feel better. Comfort food always helps on a night like this, as I about drool on my microphone, because that's how I feel right now. It's 11:49 Eastern. I should have given the time. That's another Boiler Dad staple, which I used to think was weird. Then I realized, no, there's a point to that. It's so people know, oh, I'm watching this, and it's right afterwards. So you can factor that in when you judge us. Get some comfort food. Get some beer. Get some booze. Not too much. Be responsible. Be smart. Just enjoy yourself. Warm your belly up. That's what you should do at AJ's. And if you need some apparel, like this awesome hoodie with one of my favorite logos, having the griffin on your chest, go to Homefield Apparel, homefieldapparel.com. There's a lot of cool stuff there. Check them out as well. So Purdue loses 27-20, and it had that feel. I don't know about you guys, but when you're clearly controlling the game, when your team is clearly controlling the game, and they're not putting touchdowns up, everybody knows, right? If you've watched football, you know that's a bad formula, right? If you're getting field goals now and then, or you're punting the ball a lot, but you're really controlling it, you're really keeping it away from them, that eventually bites you. You have to put teams away, and Purdue does not have any idea how to do that yet. And they had a good, first 3 quarters, honestly. They're up 2013 after 3 quarters. I talked about how the defense came to play. They only allowed, and let's just get right into the pluses and minuses here. Let me talk about some of the pluses. Let's start positive, everybody. So Purdue had 25 first downs to Minnesota's 17. Purdue was 6 of 16 on third down. Purdue was 2 of 30 on fourth down. Pretty good. Purdue had 456 total yards, and the defense only allowed 262. And I'll keep saying this, when your team does something like that, that should put you in a position to win. If I told you Purdue was going to also have almost 10 more minutes, 9 more minutes exactly, than their opponent of time of possession, they were going to hold the other team to 30 yards rushing. They were going to outgain them by nearly 200 yards. Um, I think you'd say, man, that sounds good. And Purdue was going to get an interception. Purdue was going to do a thing that they haven't done all year. They were going to get an interception. However, as we quickly pivot to the not so good, Purdue gave up the ball 4 times, 3 interceptions. I was trying to rack my brain when I saw that stat at the end because I only remember Brown throwing 2. And that's because Devin Mockabee threw an interception. Not going to come down on Mock. He did what he was asked to do. That was the play call. He did find the open guy. And one of the things, again, we can talk about the receivers in a second. He's throwing off his back foot. He's not a quarterback. If you're the receiver, you have to know that, right? You don't just sit there and try to fair catch it. You got to come to the ball when it's a kind of a, not wobbly, but a little bit of a lightly thrown pass. You got to come back to the ball, right? You don't just wait for it and let the defender step in front of you and intercept it. Questionable call. Purdue had been doing things well. There was no need for a trick play at that point. There really wasn't. This wasn't playing against Notre Dame or Ohio State where you need some sort of trickery to make it happen, right? So that was frustrating. Turning the ball over in the red zone, something that's been going on for a while for Purdue, that's crushing, right? When you look back at this line score and you realize that could easily and probably would have been a touchdown if they just ran the offense they'd been running, it starts to allow you to get frustrated, as you can hear in my voice. The other negative tonight that, I don't think we thought was going to happen after the first couple of games of the year was Purdue's receivers largely not knowing how to catch the ball. Like the number of drops, I can't even count how many drops. And sometimes you'd say, well, there was a pass late, might have been on the last attempted drive, where it was a high throw. And I thought, well, it was a high throw. It wasn't great. But then you watch the replay and he got up and he got both hands on it. You get both hands on the ball, you have to come down with it. You have to come down with it. And there were a number that were right in the breadbasket, and they bounced off Purdue receivers, bounced off them like they were bouncing off of concrete. And, Brian Brown went 21 of 42. He threw for just 203 yards. He threw 2 picks. 50% completion percentage is never going to get it done. But I would say, 5 to 10 easily were not his fault. So if he's suddenly 32 of 42 or 31 of 42, you'd say, well, that was a hell of a game. And he probably has another 100 yards. These are just excuses. These are just things you say when your team loses. I'm not making excuses in the sense of like, well, Purdue shouldn't have lost. I don't think they should have. I'm simply pointing out what I think was the difference here, right? And that was the obvious things, not completing plays, not putting it together, right? We've said for weeks now, if this defense starts to contribute, man, Purdue can win some games. This is an important stretch. These are Illinois, Minnesota, Northwestern, Rutgers. These are games that Purdue can be in and is in each of them, right? They lost 2 touchdowns last week, by 1 touchdown this week. They're in them. And if you want to start drawing the comparison to either last year's or more recent bad Purdue teams, yes. Do they look more in games? Do they look like when they start the game, it's not one of those where you're like, man, there's no chance. Purdue's going to have to win 3-0, right? That's what you felt like some of those Hazel years, right? And I think the difference here is you don't feel that way. You feel like there's a chance. They can make some nice plays, right? Ryan Brown could throw some really nice passes. Tonight, his receivers let him down. Nothing else to say but that, right? They did not catch the ball when they needed to. They did not hold on to it. There were drops, even in that last drive where Purdue could have at least been down to the 30, 35 and had a toss into the end zone, right? You're probably not going to win that game still, but instead of being 60 yards away, you have a shot at it. And they didn't get that done. Again, I will say I was happy with the defense. 262 yards allowed, getting pressure on the quarterback, getting an interception. It's great, but when you lose a turnover batter 4-1 and you give up a defensive score, we've talked about this many times, right? The odds of winning a game when you are out turnovered and you give up a defensive score are minuscule, right? And yet Purdue finds a way to do all that and only lose by 7. It's as a Purdue fan, if you find yourself saying, wow, only Purdue does this kind of stuff. They're probably not the only team that does this, but man, does it feel like they do that kind of thing to us a lot throughout history, right? where the old, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. It does seem to happen. And again, it's what happens when you're a rebuilding, not very good team that's trying to figure themselves out. I would say Purdue's closer to figuring out who they are as of this season right now. I think we've seen little bits of things getting better, holding teams now, holding a Big Ten team to 27, really 20 offensively. You're seeing little bits of progress, but you're finding ways to not do it all, to not put it all together. And I'm not saying putting it all together like Bullard talked about, which was one day they might figure it all out and have a game. This looks like the kind of team that could just have everything go right, and they could really beat somebody. I'm not even asking for that. I'm saying have nobody be catastrophic, right? Have nobody be disastrous, right? That's it. Just do your job. Do it decently well. And a few elements of the game, do it a little bit better than decently well. And you're going to win a game like this. You're going to beat a team like Minnesota, right? We're not seeing that yet. I didn't expect the offense to be the reason it didn't happen. Backbreaking pick six right after they score. I mean, Purdue was outscored 14-0 in the fourth quarter. I mean, they were outscored 14-3 in the second half. When you're clearly dominating the game and you're creeping up, you're over 450 yards of total offense, you should have a hell of a lot more than 20 points, right? You should have a hell of a lot more than 17 at halftime. So these are the reasons that you don't hold on and win games. I mean, that's just it. A couple other comments on stats before I take a look at what you guys have to say. Devin Mockabee, his average, his carry average went down a little bit late in the second half, but he had been averaging like 6 yards a carry in the first half. He ended up with 21 rushes for 98 yards. Too bad he didn't get that 100 again. He likes to do that against Minnesota. Malachi Singleton, 5 rushes for 73 yards and a touchdown. 14.6 yards per carry. I'm not quite sure why they didn't bring in Singleton when they were down in that third or fourth down late on their last true chance. It worked every time they used him. So I'm not sure why they didn't go to that again. Ryan Brown rushed the ball 8 times for 61 yards and a touchdown. Again, the guy's accounting for 264 yards by himself. The backbreaking picks are not good, but he's still doing a lot to try to make this team win. Nitro Tuggle had 3 catches for 58. Corey Smith had 6 catches for 57 and several big drops, especially late. Michael Jackson had 4 catches for 49 yards. It felt like Jackson caught more than 4, didn't it? It felt like he was around the ball a lot. But again, the drops, a lot of drops. I would say, like I said, 5 to 10, I would say definitely were drops in that game. And I know that's a broad spread there, but I don't know how many you can say maybe they weren't perfect passes. A lot were really good passes, right down the middle, right into guys' hands. That's very frustrating. That's very difficult to watch. I don't think Minnesota did anything great. I didn't realize that Drake Lindsey, their quarterback, was a freshman. He looked pretty good. I think Purdue made him look pretty good. And the other thing that I'll say, one other negative, and I will put this on the defense, and I said they didn't play a perfect game, but 2 huge, huge face mask penalties while they were sacking him, while they legitimately had caught him. And one of them was on the 3rd and long. It was like 3rd and 11, the first one. And they face masked him when they had him. And that would have been the end of that drive. That's huge. It's huge, right? Gigantic mistakes. When we talk about, one of the stat here, Purdue had 9 penalties for 71 yards. Minnesota had 3 penalties for 20 yards. Purdue found the trifecta, right? The bad penalties, the turnover battle, and bad timing of your turnovers, right? You really did the things that guarantee you're going to lose, particularly a close game, right? Despite outperforming Minnesota in every other way, which says a lot about Minnesota's not that good, but we've talked about this before. As much as we don't like PJ Fleck as a guy, runs a good program. They know who they are. They have an identity. They don't quit. They hung around, and they won the game. So, Purdue 2-4 now, 0-3 in the conference. On a day when, IU beat Oregon, UCLA won big again. UCLA, by the way, is 2-1 in the Big Ten, so they're theoretically in it. They're in the hunt, right? 2-1. Purdue now has the same record as Penn State in the Big Ten, and Purdue was that close to being 3-3 with games against Northwestern and Rutgers coming up. Think of how different you'd feel if this team was 3-3 They're that close to it, guys. That could have been. They could have been. And as much as they feel that close to it, it also feels far away, right? Because they're finding ways to just tear your heart out. I hope that the energy stays good. I hope the practice energy that I hear is good. I hope that stays strong and this team stays focused and still believes and looks at this as a, well, we gave that away. Because I do think a team can look at that and say, we are close. We gave that away. There's a big difference between that and getting just mollywomped every week, right? So there's something there. I hope they come out with the same energy. I'll be watching, and I know all of you will as well. Some quick comments here. Like I said, Chris Harder's here, Joe Ensley's here, Nathan. M3 Adjuster says live and not BDP Dowd. Yeah, I love BDP WD. He's the best. So many turnovers. Joe Ensley says, yeah, I already covered that, Joe. Chris Rudersmith says, is Boiler Dad okay after the Cubs and Purdue games? No, he's not on because he's very disappointed, not only in the Purdue loss, but he's destroyed over the Cubs losing. Big Cubs fan. He really was hoping they would go all the way this year. He's very saddened by that. So send your regards to Boiler Dad about his Cubs. He is a big baseball guy. It's a little known. People don't realize that. But yeah, he's very despondent over that. Let's see here. Daniel Pritchett says that was a tough second half to watch. Daniel, I covered that. I'm just kidding, Daniel. You're right. Too many penalties, too many turnovers, says M3 Adjuster. The defense, again, we're on the same page. Defense pass breakups were excellent. I agree. The coverage was good. The secondary, they did what I wanted them to do last week. The secondary is not to blame here, right? They broke up passes. They towed the line. They got right up to the line, right, of like almost interfering, and they kind of took what the refs were giving them. That was talked about during the broadcast, that there was some contact throughout on both sides, and it was pretty much being allowed. And they went with that, and they did a good job. Let's see here. Secondary looked better, Nathan says. They have to put it all together. You're right. I agree. I have Boiler Bugle saying, I turned off the game when the pick six happened. Just give the ball to Mock. Yeah, Purdue's making some weird choices, I feel like, with Maccabee. I'll just be quite honest. I feel like first down, run the ball with Maccabee. A lot of times he's not on the field for it. And I don't quite understand it. And then they'll run him when they're in a weird, like, second and long situation. And it's like, I feel like he doesn't have that. Maccabee's skill is evasiveness, finding those little holes and kind of bursting through. He doesn't have the burst immediately when the ball's handed to him. So when a defensive front is big, and Minnesota, even though they got a lot of new guys on the defensive front, they're still big. They still recruit big farm boys from Minnesota. If he gets wrapped up, that's tough, right? You got to, or toss it to him in the flat. I don't think that happened once today, right? And he's a guy who has hands. He'll hold on to it. He'll catch the ball. So, it's frustrating. Sam Grinstead says that we're clearly a better football team, but we aren't a good football team. Unfortunately, we're just enough better to hurt our hearts even more after a loss. That's a good way to put it. It's a good way to put it. They are. That's what I was just saying, right? They're better than they were. They're prepared. They're doing what I asked for at the start of the season, which is to look like you're coached. to say it bluntly, they look like they're coached. They look like they come out believing they have a chance. I do think there was some questionable coaching decisions. Like I just said, I don't like some of the calls. I don't like making Maccabee have to throw it in traffic. I don't like some of the usage of some of these guys. I don't like that the guys are dropping it. I don't know how you can coach that up. Your job is to receive the ball. You're the receiver. I don't know what you can do about that. But they're right. They're just good enough to make the losses painful, right? Rather than foregone conclusions. So moral victory, is that an improvement? I guess it is. Doesn't feel a lot better. Daniel Pritchett says the secondary had their best game of the season. The O-line and the D-line couldn't play clean. That's the summary right there, right? And it's weird how it's like your golf game, right? You figure some part of it out, and all of a sudden you know how to putt, and then you can't drive the ball, right? And it's if you're a golfer, you know what I mean. Like there's things that you never can do it all. You can never put it all together. And those rare days when you put most of it together, it's like wonderful. And that's all I think anybody wants from Purdue is a good golf performance. I don't know if that was my point. Nonaya says they'll never be as good as IU. I mean, I think IU is phenomenally good this year. I don't think there's any doubt. They're better than they were last year. I'll say that. They are really, really, really good. They're going to be number 3 on Monday. I'm confident in that, and they deserve it. They've earned it. But I think the whole Purdue will never be as good again. Purdue's had some bad, dark moments and then bounced right back to being dominant over IU. And I think the minute Signetti takes another job, if he does, that can happen again. So I'm not too worried about that. Um, let's see. Yeah, a couple of people saying that they agree there was no need for the trick play when they did it. Um, you know, I agree. There's nothing. It was infuriating. I see Brandon Alexander saying that. Um, John Reiner says, "How are the wide receivers catching the ball with their bodies and not with their hands away from their bodies?" You know, catching the ball into your body is the way I think some guys are taught, right? Like, especially depending on your positioning, you do want to trap it. You want to catch it right in here and have your hands over it, right? Um, but I don't think those were the only drops. I saw drops where the ball was up and their hands were here and it bounced off them. It didn't go through them, bounced off them, right? I saw drops where guys were led down. There was one in the first half, late in the first half, I think, where Brown threw a nice seam over the middle and the ball went right into the receiver's hands. And when you watch the replay, you see he wasn't broken up. He just dropped it. Are they anticipating contact? I don't know. Are they got happy feet? I have no idea. But that jumped out at me tonight as one of the worst things I've seen in a while. Good news, Alex Chatton says Brown's TD at the pylon wasn't a touchback. Yeah, everybody was worried about that. They got the call right. I mean, as soon as you touch it, the ball is dead. They explained it well in the broadcast, but I understand what you're all thinking. You have to rely on the officials to make the correct call, and nobody has faith that they're going to do that, right? The fact that the ball was dislodged by the pylon definitely had everybody nervous. And we were talking about how there's sometimes you're coached not to do that. Go down there, go out of bounds at the 1. But Purdue has trouble in the red zone, right? So I don't blame Brown for trying to make something happen, right? Even if that had resulted in a touchback, I'd be saying the same thing. He's trying to make something happen. They got the call right. That was good news that it didn't get called back. It was the correct call as well. M3 Adjuster says they were 2 of 2 in the red zone, and Purdue was 3 of 5. Yeah, and 3 of 5 isn't good enough, but when the other team only has really 2 red zone chances, man, again, there's another stat where you should win the game. Purdue had 230 yards more rushing. That's insane. That's an insane stat. It is a frustrating team. Marshall Briggs says the team is so damn frustrating, but you still want to pull for them. Bottom of the Big Ten with Penn State. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it hurts. Andy in Colorado says last year would have lost by 30. I don't know. Minnesota's not a good team. Minnesota's not good. They're 4-2, and that's what happens when you have an identity and you have a program and you win the close games. They're 4-2, guys. They need 2 wins in the back half of the season to go to a bowl, and they're going to. They'll find 2. They'll find 2 or 3. Suddenly they'll have a 7-win season when they weren't that good and were starting a freshman quarterback and had tons of new starters. That's the difference with an established program, guys. That's it right there. There's no magic beans. That's it. That's it. It's not like, well, how did they do that? They did it because of those reasons. They have an established team. They have an identity. They recruit the guys they need, and they execute when they have to. So, Chris Harder says, side note, go Rangers. Chris knows how to get to my heart talking about hockey. That's right. Rangers won tonight. So something good happened for me. What else here? Let's see. What other brilliant comments do you have? Kyle Seago says he doesn't understand throwing away plays with Singleton at quarterback. I don't. Unless I'm misunderstanding, I don't agree with that one there. I think Singleton, like I read his numbers off, he was great. He did what he was asked to do, right? Again, when he comes in, he did it. I don't think it was, maybe they wasted a possession with him, but anytime you don't get a first down or you don't score, it feels like a wasted possession. You got to try things, right? And it was working. It's not like they were trying something that like everybody knew wouldn't work. It worked a few times. It's worked a few times throughout the season. So, yeah. So I think that's going to be it for tonight. It's been 25 minutes. I appreciate you guys joining. Very frustrating loss. Do you want to spin it as, it's good that at least we're frustrated now when Purdue loses, rather than expecting it and knowing it's going to happen? Like, I guess you could say that. I guess you could look for the positives, look for the sunny side of things. This was an important stretch, right? Purdue needs to win games in October, right? They still have chances. I still absolutely think they could beat Northwestern, even though Northwestern's won 3 in a row and just beat Penn State at Penn State. So yeah, that suddenly seems a lot less. They look a lot less inept than they did early in the season. Um, but the opportunities are there. You have 2 games ahead of you that you legitimately could win if you just do the things we were talking about. All of us here in the comments and myself were talking about, if you do a few of these things better, you can actually win those games, right? And you'll feel a lot different about this team, right? If they were 4-4, you'd feel phenomenal about this team. But you'll still look back and you'll say, man, they could be over 500 if those things happen, right? Um, it is silly to expect 500 or a bowl game or something like that this year. I will stick by that. Um, but for those of you who thought that was possible, you're probably looking at this and saying, yeah, they're in these games. They could be in these games. They could be winning these games. You could definitely talk yourself into that. But when you've watched Purdue football for 30 plus years, you kind of know that this is usually how the story ends in a season like this, right? We'll talk more Monday. I don't know if you can reasonably expect any wins in the next couple of weeks. I think you can expect them to play hard. I think you can expect them to tear your heart out again. But we'll see, right? Next week is a new week. And, if nothing else, Penn State lost again. So that's always fun. That's going to do it. I appreciate you joining. Purdue loses 27-20 in Minnesota. We will talk to you soon, and I will do my best to get Boiler out of his doldrums over the Cubs. Thank you. Have a